It's everyone, but Chalowski, Larkin, Rasmussen, and Mantha, I would say.
Okay.
The top trade bait is going to be Nyquist, Howard, Glendening,
Jensen.
and then most people think Jensen, but most people also think Vanek. So
he's not going to wait his no trade.
Yeah, we'll see.
He doesn't have much value. So
hey Ryan, that's not allowed on the podcast. So do something to get rid of it.
Well, your hat's also not allowed on the podcast. So.
And Greg's wearing a Blues jersey, so let's just calm down.
But we win. So like.
Oh, you mean so do they though? That's so weird.
You also apparently
national championship in fucking 100 years.
When's your last Big Ten title?
Tyler, you also got the achievement of having the world's most boring Super Bowl. So
that was a great.
Even the commercials were boring.
Oh, the commercials are always boring. Anyways, go ahead.
All right,
Greg.
Ready? What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grind Line Podcast. This is episode 46. And we are all over here wallowing in our misery. I am here with Ryan and Tyler. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm not too bad. Eating Wendy's after class here, so.
Yeah. So the Red Wings lost again. Not really surprised. But we're going to talk a little bit today about the trade deadline, who we want to see go, what we want in return. Honestly, it's probably going to sound a lot like last season's trade deadline talk because we literally have all the same players. So we want to start tonight, though, with a little thought experiment we did this past week to see how many people from one fan base we can simultaneously piss off at once. So I think I posted something to the effect of a tweet that said there are literally still Habs fans that think Kotkaniemi is going to be better than Zadina. So I posted it on two levels. One, because I knew it would piss people off. I just knew it would because they're all raving about his 4 goals in 4 games or whatever. The kid has 27 points on the season. Will he be good? Sure. Is he going to be the same kind of player that Filip Zadina is most likely going to be? No, not in the least. Do I see Kotkaniemi as a 1C? We'll see where it goes. Right now, I think they're playing him on the third line. But my God, the fan base exploded. We got randomly blocked by some chicks that didn't say anything to us. It was pretty great. Ryan, you had some fun with him too.
I wish I could have had as much fun as you were. That's the most my phone has ever gone off in a single day, and I thought I was going to actually overheat and melt. But it's amazing to see that how adamant they were about pointing out that one's in the NHL because their team had nobody to play for him at that point and had no one much better. And the other guy is in the AHL because the other team, the Red Wings, have too many roster players that they couldn't bring up Zadina and actually make him worth a while. And there's really nothing to base their argument off of because they haven't been at the same level. And still, it's just hilarious. And the way and then props to Rohan for jumping in and providing his Australian support. That's international camaraderie right there. It was a glorious weekend. It's still going.
The other funny part of it was they kept bringing up, well, he's 18. He's the youngest player to ever do this. And I go, at one time there was another youngest player to ever do this. And there were some other really 10-year-olds became absolute trash. And then they kept saying Zadina is more likely to be like Nail Yakupov. And I look up Yakupov's numbers. You know whose numbers are eerily similar right now? Kotkaniemi's. They're around the same. So, I mean, sure, love your prospects to death. We love our prospects to death. Of course, we'll overvalue some of them. But I think it's ridiculous to say that Kotkaniemi right now is just so far superior and has so much more talent than Zadina will ever have.
He's in the NHL, Greg. He's in the NHL.
Yeah, exactly. So is Justin Applicator. So we've got that going on. That was a blast. I had fun with that this last week. the next apparent social experiment we're supposed to do is tell the Vancouver fans that Elias Pettersson is awful because some of them apparently think he is better than McDavid. So that'll have to be our next thought experiment. But we are going to move into trade deadline talk. There's a lot to talk about. Ken Holland, of course, you heard us last week talk about Ken Holland saying he might stand pat, not do anything, which is the worst possible scenario. But we're going to go around, say who we want to be traded, who's up on the block, who should go, and what we should get. But I think we'll start with Tyler. If you just want to give us a few of who you would like to go and what you would like to get for them.
Yeah, well, let me just start with the stand pat BS. If that happens, a lot of people are going to be more pissed off than they already are when it comes to Red Wings fans. I mean, the arena is not even close to as full as it was earlier in the season, and it's just going to start emptying out more and more and more because people are sick of the same bullshit. However, the team is competitive on the ice. They're fun to watch at times, so whatever. We'll see what happens. Players to go. I think Luke Glendening will end up going to the Toronto Maple Leafs for a second or a third. Probably it's a third. Gustav Nyquist will end up going somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where. I think you can get a second for Gustav Nyquist. He's been good this year, although he's sputtered a little bit as of late. Jimmy Howard, I think, will be here still. Nick Jensen, I think, is on his way out as well. You can probably get a second for him, maybe a third, maybe a second and a third. Not too sure. Vanek, if he waives his no trade clause, you'll get no more than a third for him. And if you really dare and you really want to spice things up and maybe go to Anaheim and see if they'll trade you Montour or they'll trade you Fowler or one of those guys, you could get one of those guys and trade them Athanasiou and add Athanasiou to the crop of young players that Anaheim has, like Sam Steele and Maxime Comtois and Troy Terry and those guys. The Ducks are reeling right now. Bob Murray? He's the GM or he's the coach behind the bench.
Yeah, they fired Carlisle today.
Yeah,
yesterday. So, I mean, I would go to Anaheim and see if they want to trade you Montour or they want to trade you Lindholm or they want to trade you one of those guys because you do need defensemen. And Jonathan Ericsson and Nicholas Kronwall and Nick Jensen, if he ends up going out west or if he goes somewhere, you're going to need to fill that up, whether it be with young players coming from the American Hockey League or you know what? And I think the best bet is to try to get somebody that's already played some NHL games like Montour or someone like that from the Ducks and fill that spot instead of giving a guy like, I don't know, like Libor Sulak or one of those. Just let those guys finish the season out in the AHL. Zadina, I mean, if you need to bring him up at some point, go ahead. But I would let the defensemen and most of the players just stay in Grand Rapids. Let the season be what it is. And see if you can't get an NHL defenseman from Anaheim or one of those teams out west that are struggling.
Well, Zadina's coming up next month. Holland says
that. Yeah,
Holland says that he will be up. Yeah, they won't burn a year of his ELC. There's no point. Then you have to protect him in the Seattle draft. Mm-hmm. But they will bring him up for 9 games. And another thing that we tweeted out today, one of those games is going to be against Montreal. So
God, I hope it happens, and he puts all the pucks in the net.
If his promise of filling their net with pucks comes true. But Ryan, what are some of the names you see on the block, and what do you see them going for?
So my number one, and I think it's pretty much everyone's number one, should be Goose. As much as it would suck to see him go, and I wouldn't mind them bringing him back on a decent contract if the price is right, which it probably isn't going to happen. I would like to see at least a first or second for him. I mean, regardless of who he goes to, the first round pick is going to be a late pick, so it could be a Joe Bellino 2.0 situation, but it's a gamble at that point. But really the only other one to me that I think that's going to be a reasonable one, there are only two, would be Nick Jensen to bring back a second or a third, and possibly the Glendening. I'm going to go with Tyler on this one. Babcock wants his Luke Glendening, even though it might crush the heart of my fiance here. That's her boy. But I think he could be one guy that could get you another depth defenseman. But that's the only problem is that if you get some of these guys, like what to your point, Tyler, for bringing in NHL ready guys, is that we're already log jamming, we're adding on to the log jam essentially, and we still have. I mean, Cronwall, he said it's more likely to retire, so he's not getting traded. That's already been pretty much made clear. In Holland, there's a Detroit News article today that talked to that one. So really, your best your best hope is going to you're going to be relying on Nyquist, possibly Jensen, and Glendening to pull in pretty much anything of value. And that's not including the fact that we could still trade if they don't get traded at the deadline. There's still the draft where their rights could be traded away. And some finagling could happen there, but those are my top three.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you don't trade Nyquist, there's a pretty big problem. Nyquist is one of the only people right now besides Howard that have a ton of value to another team. He's having a career season. You can get him. We can retain salary. You can finish out the year with him. I think that would help a team like Calgary or Boston. Boston's another one I think that could make a run at Nyquist. The other, I think if you could take Glendening and package him with Jensen and send him to the Leafs, you could probably get a second-round pick. You could bring back someone like a Nikita Zaitsev, who's on a terrible contract. But I think you could bring back him. He's, I think, 27 years old now, a defenseman from the Leafs, which, I mean, he's not doing great there, but I think he's being given low. He started off real good when they first signed him. And then I think he's been given less minutes and a smaller role because of the other defensemen they've brought in. So I think you could give up someone like Jensen to bring in someone like Zaitsev and get some good picks and send him to the Leafs. With
Greg, do you like Zaitsev more than you like Montour from Anaheim?
I mean, it's take him or leave him for me. Zaitsev has kind of, like I said, since they signed him, his production's gone down, but I think that's because his ice time has gone down, his pairings have gone down. Montour's always been pretty steady, but I'd have to check their contracts. I don't know what Montour's making.
You got Zaitsev at 4.5 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more years at 4.5 with the Leafs, and then Montour with Anaheim at
3.3875 until 2020.
Yeah, and he's an RFA, so maybe Anaheim wouldn't even be inclined to move a guy like Montour, but that's the kind of guy that I would start looking at, or maybe even Lindholm. Maybe Lindholm is more expendable for them.
See, those are still cheap contracts, though.
What?
For where they're at right now, those types of contract, that Zaitsev contract for 5 more years, like a Eriksson style. I mean, that's for where they're at and how much is coming off. I mean, do you really want to bring that on? I mean, yeah, you got Cronwall retiring, Daly's going to be gone, Witkowski gone, but I don't know. That one's a hard one to swallow for me.
Well, here's the other thing too, and this is something we haven't even brought up yet. Is a guy, you know, and you talk about Jensen possibly being a guy that would be moved. Is a guy like Mike Green attractive to some teams?
I think he is, but again, Green has made it known that he does not want to waive his no trade.
He does not want to leave
the city.
Yeah, he does have one.
Yep, he doesn't want to leave the city. His family's here. He's here. He actually seems like one of the guys that enjoys being here.
Yeah,
and I don't mind keeping Green, especially if you can shed some of the other defense. Like if you get rid of Jensen and you can bring in Hronek full time, I think that helps you quite a bit. And you've got to wait you've got to wait another year to get rid of Eriksson. Cronwall hopefully retires. If Cronwall retires and you get rid of Jensen, you can bring in you can trade for a good young D-man, and you can bring up Hronek full time, and I think that would help immensely.
The problem is young defensemen aren't really expendable, and the ones that are cost a lot. I mean, think about it. Now, this is Peter Chiarelli being an idiot, and so maybe this isn't the bar that you set. But, you know, Adam Larson costs you fucking Taylor Hall. So if that's the
that's just a dumbass trade.
But that was a terrible trade.
But think of some of the trades that, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but think of some of the trades that have been made for some like good young defensemen. It's it takes a lot. If you go back a few years ago, Ryan Johansson got traded to Nashville, and Seth Jones came back the other way. So Seth Jones cost Ryan Johansson, who was a first-line center at the time for Nashville or for Columbus. So it's not an easy thing to get a young defenseman.
I am not saying it's easy. I think, though, it is probably still doable.
I think it's doable.
The one that stood out to me, what did Shea Theodore was he traded to Carolina?
No, he's still with Vegas.
Shea Theodore, he's in Vegas.
He was with Vegas. He got Chicago let him go in the expansion draft.
Yep.
So I mean, it's
no, wasn't he no, he was in Anaheim.
Or was it Anaheim?
Anaheim. Yeah, he was.
So
no,
Anaheim,
I'm thinking of him. Who's the other young guy from Chicago they just recently let slip out?
So
Anaheim?
No,
Anaheim.
Van Riemsdyk.
Oh,
That's right.
Yeah, Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
Yeah, my bad. I was thinking of Shea Theodore though from Anaheim. How he ended up going to Vegas and now he's out in Carolina. Like he's a top young defenseman, but he's also a middle of the road type guy that you can finagle your way through. That Detroit could work with. I'm not saying they're going to go after him, but like that's
Shea Theodore's still in Vegas.
Is he still in Vegas? Who am I thinking of right now?
He signed a deal this summer too.
He's like one of their top defensemen.
Yeah, Shea Theodore.
Maybe that was the point I was trying to make. Is like letting Shea Theodore go on a whim before these guys are tested. Like you just mentioned, Seth Jones, where he was already making his way up to a 1-2 defenseman, but Shea Theodore, Anaheim, he barely cracked the ice for them, and then they let him go via the expansion draft to Vegas, and he's just crushing it. And then you got Trevor Van Riemsdyk is another young defenseman that Chicago let go away to. He's not young now; he's 27 now, but they let him walk to Carolina. So there's plenty of guys out there that fit the middle of the road of defender. That you're not going to have to spend a lot of money on. I think like a Nick Jensen type, he's a 5'6" on most teams, and they're not going to overspend on people like that. So,
no, but you also have to think that we're going to be bringing people in. Like I think Gustav Lindstrom is probably 2 years out, depending on how Jared McIsaac, who's been great in the queue this year, depending on how he does in the next couple years, you're going to need a spot for him. So maybe not even signing a younger defenseman, but getting rid of one of your terrible contracts and packaging something like an Athanasiou and a pick to get maybe someone good.
Yeah,
like
I think what this rebuild is going to take, because I think now you've gotten the picks, like the certain amount of picks, the significant amount of picks. Now it's about hitting on them. But I think it's also about getting creative and starting to package those picks and move up in the draft, or package those picks and get a young defenseman, or package those picks with a forward, with Athanasiou, or Greg, I hate to say this, package those picks with Mantha and move up. I mean, it's gonna take something significant, especially like let's just say Colorado gets that first overall pick, Jack Hughes.
Why?
Would you? Hold on a second. Would you deal Athanasiou, Mantha, and your first this year for Jack Hughes?
No.
I mean, if I'm getting rid of Athanasiou and Mantha, I'm not taking Hughes. I'm taking Kakko.
Okay.
Because you're getting rid of scoring, and what are you replacing it with?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess Hughes is more of a playmaker. Kakko is more of a goal scorer. I don't know. It's just interesting because like the draft itself can really flip on its ear if Colorado ends up getting him. And who knows, they may end up just taking Jack Hughes, and that just might be the end of it if they end up getting that first overall pick.
Well, they already said they're not trading. Sakic said he is not trading that pick.
Yeah, well, he said that when they took McKinnon, and he almost traded it. He almost traded because he wanted Seth Jones, and I guess he ended up taking McKinnon, or was that a different draft? I forget exactly how it went, but he didn't end up taking Seth Jones, and he ended up going to Nashville, and he almost traded that pick. I don't know if it was a second overall pick or what it was, but
I think it was the McKinnon one.
Yeah, it was a McKinnon one. That's yeah. I don't know. You just gotta get creative. I think that's, That's where we're at.
I think Nyquist goes. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the only move that's made.
Agreed.
But I think that Glendening Babcock's got a hard on for Glendening, so we could send him out. I think we could send out Jensen to a team that's looking for defensive depth, like the Maple Leafs. And then I think we could send out Howard, but we won't. My dark horse is the past couple of years teams have asked about Danny DeKeyser. So could we ship out someone like DeKeyser and retain $1 million of his salary because we have so much cap room coming into next season? I think that would also free up a defensive spot. If you wanted to re-sign Jensen, you have to get rid of someone else.
Yep.
I would be okay re-signing Jensen if you could get rid of someone like DeKeyser.
Absolutely. I'd be 100% on that, especially if they now does retaining salary, does that carry over year to year? Can they do that?
Yep, it goes to the end of their contract.
Oh,
Yep.
Does it really? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, if they could do that and do a mil per year, like you said, I mean, that puts them down to what, $3.5 million?
Yeah, and that's not even a lot. I mean, Toronto's still paying for Phil Kessel, so.
Yeah, I would be very okay with that contract falling off the books. Having that especially with everything that falls off at the end of this year, everything that falls off next year with Eriksson and Kronwall, etc. That would be huge because it goes back to the point of what the Wings could pursue via free agency, and then also what they could make a deal with. So that would be fantastic. I didn't even think about that one.
So I say if you get rid of someone like DeKeyser, who is making way more money than Jensen. Right now, DeKeyser's contract is through 2022-23. He's making $5 million a season. If you could take $1.5 million of that, that would knock him down to 3.5, and give Jensen maybe a 3-year extension at $2.5 million per year. You're still paying less. $1 million less than what you would be paying DeKeyser.
To do more than DeKeyser does.
I wouldn't say to do more defensively than DeKeyser does. Absolutely. You're not getting more offense with Jensen, but I think you're getting more of a shutdown guy and a better penalty kill when you play Jensen. So that I think that would be a fair trade for a team that wants a depth D guy and someone like DeKeyser, because he's older and has more experience or whatever, however you want to put yourself to bed at night. But I think you could get rid of him, retain $1.5 million salary. It's only going to cost a team $3.5 million to pick him up. And then you could pay Jensen $2.5 million and you're still paying less. So that's my wild trade deadline scenario. I don't have anything else I think that's going to be crazy going on. I actually think it's going to be a relatively boring trade deadline with Ken Holland, because you see moves are starting to happen now. I think in the past 3 or 4 days, there have been like 5 trades. So we're starting to move on some stuff, and I don't think anything significant is going to happen for us. What I think is going to happen for us more is going to be towards free agency, is where they'll try to make a bigger move.
Yeah, I think, like I said before, I think the creativity is going to have to start like something like that, where you eat some salary and you make a player look a lot more attractive than they are. DeKeyser, or I don't know if you would ever consider doing this, but would Eriksson be expendable?
No,
only if you could throw him off a bridge.
What if you eat half of it, though? You don't think someone would take him?
No, I don't know. Does the McDonald's down the road need a drive-through guy?
Hey, you know what? I'm sorry, and this might sound really stupid, but a lot of the commentators, and I'm not talking about the Detroit, the Fox Sports Detroit commentators, Ken Daniels and Mickey Redmond and those guys obviously know that he's trash. But like the national guys, when Eriksson's out of the lineup, they're, oh, Detroit's missing one of their best defensemen, Jonathan Ericsson. Does the league think that?
Hey, will NBC buy him out? He can just be a commentator?
Yeah, I'll take that.
That'll never happen. If it does, I'll just start walking around naked everywhere out of pure joy.
Listen, Tyler, if they can trade Jonathan Ericsson, I will Venmo you $50.
Okay.
This is recorded. You should pin that tweet.
It's not going to happen.
And when it
We're
does,
to wait.
and when it does,
Honestly, I think there is a better chance of them re-signing Jonathan Erickson
You shut the
than
hell up.
trading
you
his
don't
contract.
ever say that
I
again.
swear to God, I'll never. I'm done. If that happens, I'm done because you just fucking ruined it.
So, what are you guys looking for? And we'll keep this part short, but what do you want to come out of this trade deadline with? Like, what do we have? 10 picks right now.
12
How
picks.
many? Do you want more picks? Do you want prospects? What do you want?
It depends on who's getting traded. I mean, Nyquist is going to be your best bet to get a high pick, which would be mid to low round, first round pick, depending on who the trade goes to and how they fare in the playoffs. And he could also possibly get you, much like Glendening, a role playing guy. Like if Glendening were traded, I could see them wanting a depth defenseman or a depth forward to kind of replace him. But they also have enough of that in the system because you got like Dominic Turgeon and guys of that nature that could fill that need and role. But I mean, to me, I'd rather just get a couple more picks and then wheel and deal.
Yeah.
Start packaging that shit like what you said, Tyler.
Yeah, I guess in a perfect world for me, I mean, I don't think, I mean, obviously the last few drafts, they've gone for quantity, not quality. And I think it's time you start doing quality. I think it's time you start hitting on your picks. And if you need to move up in the draft, you move up. If you need to trade a team a first round pick and you know, get their first round pick and, you know, you give them something else, move up in that draft, because I'm telling you right now, I mean, obviously right now you wouldn't want to do that because of the lottery and stuff, but you got to start being creative when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I guess in a perfect world, though, I would take prospects over picks at this point of the rebuild.
Really? That's interesting.
I agree.
Like, what level prospect are you trying to get, though? With what we have?
But for Gustav Nyquist, if it's just Nyquist alone, I would probably take the pick because it's probably going to be somewhere around a second or maybe even a first round pick, depending on what team needs him and what team's desperate enough to do it. But if you're talking like maybe trading Jensen with Athanasiou, I expect prospects in that deal.
I mean, you'd probably get pick and prospect. Ken Holland doesn't make player for player deals. It doesn't happen,
unfortunately.
So I think if we came out of this trade deadline, let's say 13 picks in this upcoming draft, at that point you can package to move up. You can, if you somehow finish outside of the top 3, you might be able to move into the top 3 by packaging the picks together to move up. But I think if we came out of this trade deadline with 13 picks or 12 picks and then maybe a couple guys in Grand Rapids, I think that would help because Grand Rapids is going to be depleted pretty soon. Our cupboards are getting better with the last draft, but they're still kind of empty. So I'd say 12, 13 picks if we came out with and we got rid of a couple contracts and got some new guys in the lineup, I'd be happy. But I'm not expecting anything because you all know what happens when we expect stuff.
Things get broken.
Yeah, well, you know what? We expected a lot for 25 years, and you know,
and we got it.
We got it.
It's still the hangover phase.
2009 pisses us all off, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, it was a great run, and now we're basically, you know, seeing what all that success does to you.
We're at the Pedialyte stage of our hangover right now.
It sucks. I mean, you can't say it doesn't. But
no, it's absolutely terrible. The playoffs are fun to watch, but when I don't get a chance to go watch a Wings playoff game, it's fucking boring.
Yeah,
I
sucks.
agree.
At least the team's decent enough to watch, though. I mean, they don't totally suck.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up tonight. Let's get our final thoughts and our Twitter handles. We'll start with you, Ryan.
Final thoughts is hold on to your butts. I've probably said that before, but this next week and a half, what day is the deadline? 22nd, 24th?
Oh, I thought it was the 23rd.
23rd, I think.
2 weeks out. Anyways, it's coming. Something's going to happen. Something might not happen.
Deadline is the 25th.
the 25th is D-Day, so we're exactly 2 weeks away from all hell or no hell breaking loose. So I'll just keep saying it over and over. Enjoy it. It's gonna suck. Good things will happen. Fuck Erickson.
Twitter.
At RD Ryan 33.
Tyler.
Yeah, my final thoughts is anytime you lose to Chicago, it's fucking horrifying. It sucks losing.
Oh, it was great.
You know what, Greg? I support your losing for Hughes or tanking for Capo Caco, but when it comes to losing to the Hawks, nothing pisses me off more than losing to Chicago. Their fans are aggravating, and yes, okay, they're not the fans that they once were when they were, you know, winning the 3 and 6 years or whatever it was, but they're still annoying as all hell. And I would like nothing more for the Wings to beat the Hawks when they play here at Little Caesars Arena in a few days. So, anyways, that's my final thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
My final thoughts are thank God that Holland has 1 year left on his contract. I don't think I can take any more headlines like Holland going to stand pat. Holland ready to make playoffs next year. I can't do it anymore. Good luck to whoever the next general manager is.
Steve Yzerman, no pressure. No pressure at all.
I got a crisp $5 bill. But I think that I don't think much is going to happen at trade deadline. I'm happy if we do a lot. I'm not happy if we do nothing. But if we just ship out Nyquist, I'm okay with that too. But you can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. I had a super sweet Larkin Photoshop job I did today.
Those were fantastic.
If you want to check it out, you can find it at Bringing the Wing or at Grindline Pod. You can follow us on Twitter at Grindline Pod. You can get our podcast on Spotify, on Podbean, on iTunes. Literally at almost anywhere you could get. We're not on SoundCloud. You can get us almost anywhere you can get podcasts. Please tweet at us, Facebook us. We have a Facebook page. If you search Grindline Podcast on Facebook, you will find us. But yes, tweet at us, subscribe, like us on Facebook, send us messages. We love all you people. Just talk to us. But for Ryan and Tyler, I am Greg. Stay classy, Hockey Town.